And we may not have the healthiest food, but man, we sure know how to make it taste good.
This is true.
All right, so we're here at Fun, Fit, and Fasting with Dwayne Golden and my co-host, my good friend and colleague, George Chandler. George, what's happening, man?
How you doing, D?
I'm
Good to see you, sir, as always.
I'm excited. I love this topic. By the way, George is kind of like the producer as well of our podcast, and the topic he thought would be great to cover is this thing of sadness. It's he calls it SAD. But George, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, SAD stands for Standard American Diet. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not really sad or heartbreaking or anything like that. It's just like the acronym or something, right?
Correct.
Okay, good deal. All right, well, I was all geared up, ready to cry. I've got my tissue ready, got my tissue box. I wasn't sure if it was a different type of sadness. Okay, George, it's that time. So this idea of the standard American diet, I will be honest, as we think about this along with our listeners, a lot of you guys who may be listening to this podcast, you may be very, very familiar with it already. For me, it was an intro. I thought I knew a lot of things, and with my background in that, but for me, George, it really was sad and heartbreaking. Tell me a little bit about your experience with this idea of the standard American diet and what excites you enough that you thought it'd be a great podcast topic.
Yeah, I think it's just real important to make people aware of the fact that with the Standard American Diet, there's a lot of processed foods, right? A lot of sugar, a lot of carbs, fast food, and that is literally what's killing people. And when you look at the fact that when you have these high carb meals and all this sugar that we're consuming, it's going to raise blood sugars and insulin resistance, as well as add pounds. So
So let me see if I get this right now. I was looking at something. I cheated, man. I shouldn't have even. I did a sneak peek at the percentages, and this is what I meant by heartbreaking. I saw. Let me see if I can see it. Find it here again. I saw that only like 18% of the American diet is like raw fruits and vegetables, and like 60% high processed, high carb or high calorie food. Is that about accurate?
Sad but true.
Heartbreaking, man, because here's what I did a comparison with this. I think I want our listeners to hear this. I'm a history buff, so I love the direct results from World War I and World War II. Before World War I, we were responsible for about 16% of the world's resources. Following World War II, we were responsible for more than 60% of the world's resources. Now, through that came innovation in areas of food that will blow your mind, resulting not just refrigeration, but the processed foods, these dry cereals, and so many things that have come up that affected us baby boomers much greater than it affected our parents. It affected us baby boomers so much. This is the standard American diet that resulted from all this innovation and creativity from the Kellogg's brands, the Hershey brand, and all this thing, which is great for our market, right, as far as finances. But it blew my mind, George. It blew my mind when I think about the fact that this is the first generation that requires mobile assistance to get around the grocery store, starting in our 40s. And a greater percentage of the population with type 2 diabetes before the age of 35 in many cases, but of course in many cases, but certainly by the time we get in our 40s. A higher cancer incidence rate than any other country in the world. There's just so many things, and we didn't associate it because of once our FDA plants their flag that, hey, this is healthy. This is, growing up, I don't mean to do this, but do you remember the great commercials of the 1960s and 70s? Oh. They're great. Tony the Tiger. All sugar and water.
So I got one for you. So I remember this in school. I don't know if you had it when you were in school, but this whole thing with mulligan stew. Does that ring a bell to
Oh,
you?
yes, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
And
Pie,
yeah.
baseball, apple pie, right? Hot
Yep.
dogs. All the stuff that we brought to the marketplace really was the thing that slowly became our primary breakfast, our primary dinners, and our primary entertainment meals. Did you notice
Yeah.
that over the last 30 years, by the time we were kids, the main meal suddenly became burgers, pizza, and of course, if you're out entertaining, like at a ballpark or something, it's hot dogs, popcorn, tortillas, or what do you call those things? The cheese with the chip thing. Before you know it, oh my goodness, everything is entertainment. And of course, I mean, I don't mean to push this, but unlike anywhere else, I mean, I'm a coffee fanatic, right? I know you're a tea person, you're a teetotaler, but man, what that did when coffee became the huge hit it has over the last 15 years, so did every kind of pastry, scone, donut you could imagine. And before you know it,
Muffin.
pow! Wow. I didn't mean to take over with this, but you picked a topic that first of all, I knew nothing about it. Now I look and see that some of the consequences of being so innovative around this idea of food and getting things faster, microwaving, just what do you call it, non-perishable goods, and so many
Mhm.
preservatives and all that we're doing, and the shortcuts to getting our palate satisfied, and unfortunately keeping our nutritional states dissatisfied. Oh man, George, as a over 50 or almost 60, I can see why, unfortunately, this day and age, much of our population, as we get to this age, we need assistance with sitting, standing, walking, sleeping, and so forth. Oh my goodness! As we look at comparisons to the rest of the world, give me the positive sides. What can we do about this? I mean, it's your topic. What are the best things? I know what I think we should do about it, being that we love fun, fit, and fasting. So as a faster, fasting is good, but if you're still putting the wrong stuff in, it's gonna help only in a marginal way. It's not going to have this huge advancement in your health when you're just doing the fasting. So what can we do about it, George?
Yeah. So what you'll find in the literature is that we need to lower the sugars, which are easily transformed into
Okay.
carbohydrates. So sugars, trans fats, saturated fats, calories. We need to lower the carbohydrates in our diets and increase healthy fats as well as a moderate amount of protein. But by doing that, that will lower the insulin resistance that you have. And ideally, you want to get into a state where you're burning fat
Sure.
and
Let me
not.
slow it down a little bit just because I think that a lot of terms are used in our industry of health and wellness, like insulin resistance. For someone who's just looking to see a change and don't even understand what that word means, you want to break down a little bit for us? What you
Yeah,
mean by
I'm
insulin
sorry.
resistance?
Yeah, so insulin resistance is where over time, you're eating all these sugars, right? And ingesting all these carbs. You get to a point where once the body detects that you're eating food and there's carbohydrates, it's going to release, your pancreas is going to release insulin. And over the years, you get to a point where your pancreas is putting out so much insulin, you're going to need to increase that amount of insulin in order to have your blood sugars lowered. So that's what they call insulin resistance. That's the quick and dirty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's helpful. Even if one doesn't know what a pancreas is, just the idea that our body's organs weren't meant to constantly be working and
Correct.
secreting these specific
Hormones.
hormones that
Yep.
wasn't needed. So because it happens over time, this leads to, like you're saying, other chronic illnesses like diabetes and so forth. Okay,
Correct.
so then I got to be honest, as a kid growing